Welcome back. Now, if Israel is a Jewish nation, is there room for non-Jews? Well, it's a question that haunts the 1.4 million Arabs who live within Israel. Zionism, the ideology that says Israel is for Jews, has been criticised for being racist. The Israeli flag itself is based on the emblem of Zionism and the notion of a Jewish home for the Jewish people. The Hatikva, or the Hope, is Israel's national anthem, containing expressions of Jews coming home to a Jewish land. It suggests there's little room for anyone but Jews in Israel. Well, facing accusations of colluding against Israel, Arab Israelis have at times been targeted by Israeli authorities. During the second Palestinian uprising in 2000, demonstrations by Israeli Arabs against Israeli brutality left 13 of them dead after being shot by police. An Israeli panel, the Or Commission, found the police were unprepared for tackling the riots and suggested excessive force had been used. Yet 7 years on, not one indictment has been brought against any of the officers. Well, rejoining us now, our guests, all from Jerusalem: Hannah Suaid, an Arab-Israeli politician and member of Knesset; Marcus Sheff, Executive Director of the Israel Project; Rachel Benziman, Executive Director of the Association for Civil Rights in Israel. Marcus Sheff, let me start with you, if I may, and just touch on Zionism, because some critics say that the ideology that says Israel is for Jews only is racist. I mean, there was a UN resolution in, I think it was November 1975, UN Resolution 3379, that said Zionism, and I quote, "Zionism is a form of racism and racial discrimination." Is it?
Well, of course it isn't. And for that particular UN resolution which you're talking about was overturned, and quite rightly so. In fact, considering that, you know, Jews are the only nation on earth who aren't entitled to national liberation, who aren't entitled to a homeland, is actually in and of itself a racist idea. That's not an exclusive idea. The fact that Jews are entitled to a national homeland is not exclusive. It states very clearly in the independence document of the State of Israel that there is freedom of religion for all, that Israel is a place where everybody of all races, of all creeds and of all colours can feel free, have full rights and have full democracy. And that is in fact the case. Of course there are problems, of course there are issues, and of course it's the work in process. Society is a work in process in countries all over the world, but surely it's a wonderful thing that within the founding documents of the State of Israel, it is expressly stated that there is freedom of all, no matter religion, no matter colour, no matter race.
Let me put that point to Hannah Suaid. Hannah, does Zionism equate to racism in the eyes of Arab Israelis among your constituents?
I think this is not the most important point in this issue, because you know, racism and anti-Arab views has been changing all the time. I mean, Israel was all the time a Zionist state, but the situation was different over different times. I think the policies of the government are the most important issue here. I think that if we look at the situation of the Arab citizens and think about this situation as a direct result of Israel being a Zionist state, then this is a huge problem, and it is an eternal struggle in the Middle East. I mean, we would support, we would like to have some sort of coexistence between Arabs and Jews. We want the Israeli government to be serious about its dealing with the Arab citizens, either in economic development, either in housing problems. This is the most important thing. I mean, there is a discourse here in Israel about the definition of the state of Israel, whether it is a Jewish state or a Jewish and democratic state or only a democratic state. I think the most important point is what is going on the ground here. And I have to state here that the increase in the anti-Arab views over the last 2 years is very problematic. I remember the situation between 2000 and 2005, where we had suicide bomb attacks against Israeli civilians, and the situation of racism was not like this situation now.
Okay.
Which means that which means that during the last 2 years, we have an increase in racism. And as I said in the very beginning, I think that the politicians in Israel, some parties are trying to build up their reputation and their status and their popularity on racism.
Okay, let me just move the argument on and bring back in Rachel Benziman, if I may. I mean, Hannah Suede made an important point there about the suicide bombings, because the Israeli government says suicide bombings in Israel have gone down dramatically since the separation wall went up. Presumably the fear of Arabs in Israel should be less, but ironically, your report says it's more.
Yes, it is an interesting issue, and I myself, I'm not sure that I know what the reason is. I think that in general, people still view the Arab citizens as people who may be their own enemies, and I think that is maybe still a result of this kind of area that we live in, but it's of course totally unjustified. I don't think that I have seen that some of the politicians are trying to find excuses for these ideas, and I think there's just no excuse. I think that in general, what needs to be changed is the view towards the Arab citizen, because I think that we have just seen lately the police go with very, very strong forces into an Arab village when they just wanted to arrest 2 people. And I think that the fact that the police and other bodies in the government in Israel still views the Arabs as threat and as people who cannot be trusted is something that needs to be changed. Now, how to change that? Part of it is education. Part of it is actually realizing that you cannot go on like that. Unfortunately, there are politicians in Israel who thrive on actually raising this kind of attitudes towards the Arab population. There have been some suggestions in the Knesset, in the legislative body, to curb the rights of political parties who may be opposing the Jewish nature of the state. And I think that any curbing of political views and the political parties in Israel should not be done on this basis. In general, I think that we have not reached a time where Jews and Arabs feel comfortable with each other, and I think there is a lot of work to do, and of course it trickles down from the government downwards. Okay,
let's just stay with the politics for a second and bring in back Marcus Sheff. Marcus, can this only be changed by the Israeli government changing its racial mentality? Does it have to be driven by the government, do you think?
Well, the Israeli government itself doesn't have a racial mentality. I think what the speakers have been saying, what Rachel and Hannah have been saying, is that there are politicians who have been expressing racist views, as you get in Italy, as you get in France and the UK, always disgusting. Yes, absolutely the case. The government itself, I can't think myself of racist positions which have been taken by the government. But as I said, it's about education. That's absolutely the case. Certainly, we need to concentrate on the youth, and I think Rachel is right. You know, we need to be changing attitudes so that Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews trust each other more. I think also, you know, let's not forget the elephant in the room here, which is the conflict. I think as a peace process, and I absolutely hope that a peace process will get traction, and as we move towards what I think and I hope will be a settlement to the conflict here, I think that will make a big difference, because of course the conflict is the elephant in the room. Of course that is an issue which hangs over everybody's heads.
Okay, let's get a final thought from Hannah Suede. Hannah, Marcus seems to be saying there that you know, the peace process perhaps might make a difference. Do you think it will?
Well, I think the peace process and putting the peace negotiations back on track is positive, and it really can help in improving the situation. But on the other side, I would like to say that, you know, recently we had a new legislation introduced in the Knesset which legislates discrimination against Arabs openly, which is a new legislation, a new bill introduced by members of the coalition in Israel, depriving the Arab citizens in the state of Israel from the right of renting land from the state on a racial basis. Because they are Arabs, they are not allowed to do so. So which means that if you have a positive effect from one side, then it's enough for one politician to come and to change and to pollute the whole situation.
Okay, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Hannah Suede, Marcus Sheff and Rachel Benziman, thank you all for joining us. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and, of course, your suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. From the whole team here, goodbye for now.